What's going on, everybody? Peter Ariz here with the CanesInSight podcast. Appreciate everyone for joining me this afternoon. Game day eve, we've made it. Sorry, the setup is a little bit different today. I don't have my headset with me. I don't have my microphone, so the audio may not be perfect, but had to check in with everybody, see how they're feeling. I know a lot of you guys are headed up to Gainesville. A lot of you are there already, so hope everyone has gotten in safely and, have safe travels on the way up. Heard the traffic's been pretty crazy on the way up there. But, of course, today's show, as always, is powered by Anajar Levine Accident Attorneys. Again, contact them at 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life, Anajar and Levine. So we're pumped up. It's been a long off season, as it is always every year, right? But this year in particular, with all the changes to Miami's roster, and you're starting with a marquee matchup week one here. We've started to get a taste of college football starting last week in week 0. And now, last night, Colorado played North Dakota State. That was a good game. But to have a meaningful matchup like this in week 1, man, it makes everything that much more special with this matchup with Florida up there in Gainesville. So I wanted to get to, of course, live Q&A here as we let some people get into the chat. And again, answer, as many questions as I can for you guys, but talk to me, chat. How are we feeling this afternoon? Game day eve. I have some notes on the team to get into, the last few days, the last week leading up to the game. Just some things we're hearing. And again, some of this stuff could be predictions based on what I'm hearing, but a lot of things that are exciting heading into this season for Miami. So there's been a lot of talk again. We don't get into specifics of injuries, right? We're not going to here at CanesInSight, we're not going to speculate, on specific injuries, right? But I think for the most part, heading into Miami's game, they have to be really happy with how they came out of fall practice in terms of the health of the team. And I think the team's ready to roll. So I think that, everyone's talking about Mark Fletcher. Coach Criswell said he's going to play. I would expect him to play. So for the most part, man, this is a team that came out really good out of fall here. And again, no team's going to come out 100% healthy from fall camp. But if you're Miami staff, you have to be happy with, for the most part, how they came out of that. And the team you see on the field tomorrow, I expect to be a very strong one. So defensive line, man, that's been obviously the talk of this team. I'll get into a little bit later what I think, I don't know if they're the keys to this game, but things that I'm going to be watching based on, talking to the NFL scout people, certain matchups, and then, from Miami's side as well. But defensive line, man, Simeon Barrow, huge addition in the offseason. Expect him to see, a bulk of the snaps there at D tackle. Akeem Mesidor, man, we've been talking about him as a versatile guy across that defensive line. But I think that he's someone people have forgotten about a little bit because of last season's injury, foot injury that he was dealing with. But expect him to play a big part, and I think we'll see him a lot on the interior as we did in his previous season when he was healthy at Miami. So those two guys for sure, I think, are going to be heavily in the mix at D tackle. I would expect C.J. Clark, obviously from NC State, coming in here. Josh Horton. This trio of Josh Horton, Ahmad Moten, Anthony Campbell gives you that size, that real power inside that I think that they really need one of those guys to step up. And I expect all three of those guys to see snaps tomorrow. Justin Scott, someone who has come on really strong here. You never know how these young defensive linemen are going to acclimate or how quickly they pick up on it, whether it's just a physical thing or mentally if they're ready to get in there and play their role. But he's someone, as a top 10 recruit in the country, has come on strong. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the mix tomorrow as well at D tackle. Expectations, and again, get your questions in here. Everyone and I'll answer as much as I can. But things to watch during this game, right? We've talked a lot about this Florida offensive line, how it is a perceived weakness for them heading into the season, right? getting into it a little bit more, a little deeper. I think that right side of that line for Florida is going to be something Miami looks to attack tomorrow. And I listen, this wouldn't be a surprise to Florida staff. They ended up going with a couple guys who are very big. They have the size, but I think maybe a step slow. Not as athletic as some of the other choices they had, but obviously Florida opting to go with bigger bodies because of the size Miami gives you on the edge with some of these guys in Ruben Bain, and not just the size, right, but the power that they play with. Ruben Bain, Barron, we talked about Mesidor, expect to see him inside and outside, but really that right side of the offensive line for Florida is what I'm looking at closely tomorrow. And just how Florida exposed Zion Nelson when he was a freshman back in 2019. And that was pretty much a game plan record at times for Miami in that game. I think Miami can have similar success against Florida tomorrow on that right side of the offensive line. You have guys like Elijah Alston that you're going to, could rush from either side. Expect him to play a big part in this pass rush. And at the end of the day, if Miami creates that pressure up front that we've been hyping up this defensive line, a lot of guys coming in with successful backgrounds at other schools. They've had the production at other places. So you'd expect them to come here and build on that with the coaching staff, with Jason Taylor working with them and Coach Salavea. But listen, I've said it once, and I think Miami has been Mario Cristobal was very complimentary of Graham Mertz. Mertz is no bum, all right? So he's efficient. Again, hasn't really shown the ability to stretch the field very much, but we saw this issue with Miami last time, tackling in the secondary, right? We saw it on the Kadarius Toney play that he busted the game open for them. And I think there's an expectation from Miami's side that Florida's receivers are probably better than the public are giving them credit for, right? So we've talked about Eugene Wilson, Elijah Badger. I mean, look, there's been a lot of reports from the Florida side that he didn't exactly come in and grasp the starting role coming in from Arizona State that people thought he would. But Miami, I think they're understanding there may be some mind games being played, on the Florida side there, as we've seen on the recruiting trail recently as well. So I would not be surprised to see Elijah Badger again, even though he's been a guy that reports out of Florida have said that he, didn't set the world on fire when he came in. Expect him to see a lot of snaps tomorrow and have a big role. We're talking about Eugene Wilson a lot, but there are some other weapons, and as Jake Wynn says here as well, DK is a very solid receiver. I don't know if he's going to give them, a ton of speed on the field, but reliable, coming over from Wisconsin, and a guy that from what Miami expects to be a solid player for them. So getting into some questions here, and then I have a couple more kind of expectations or things to watch, I should say, for the game tomorrow. Reed Rambo says, do we have an alpha cornerback? I think coverage-wise, Daryl Porter was as good, as anybody in the ACC for the most part last year. You look at his rankings on PFF; they were really solid last year. Now, there's more to that than just in coverage. I think that Damari Brown has the profile of a guy who can be an alpha, physical cornerback who can do a lot of different things, play from the nickel, play on the boundary against some of these bigger wide receivers. We saw his physicality against the run and blitzing off the edge last year from the nickel spot. Coach Cristobal has been very complimentary of the physicality that he brings to that position. I think he has that profile. And then, again, Romanis Frederic, we've talked about him a lot. I expect him to play tomorrow, right? Based off what everyone from the Canes camp has been saying, but expect him to end up being one of those top three guys by midway point of the season, without a doubt. And I think that there's an expectation that could he be that right now? Could he be that in a month, maybe by the end of the season? It takes time. He's had a great camp, but we have to see it against other teams, right? But I think there's an expectation that he could end up being that sort of cornerback for Miami. But again, Daryl Porter, really solid. Damari Brown really made strides last year as he saw more playing time near the end of the season there. Had a big time, game against Florida State against Keon Coleman. And to me, you're going to need some of these other guys to potentially step up, a Robert Stafford, De'Ani Hill. But for right now, I think those are the guys that we should be probably keying in on right now at the cornerback position. Trenches will be key, as Shaboy Kane says, period. I agree. I mean, look, we've talked so much about Miami's offensive line and how that's a big-time strength going into the season. But at the end of the day, that D-line, we've been hyping them up pretty much just as much, and we've heard a lot about how that's a huge question mark for Florida, right? So we have to dominate how you expect to dominate in that aspect. And again, we haven't even talked about, the crowd and all that, but at the end of the day, physicality is physicality and trench play is trench play. I think a lot of the stuff that goes on outside of it could be affected by the crowd without a doubt. But if you can wear a team like this down where you have a perceived advantage, right? You get to that late part of the game, and that's when you can really hopefully wear them down a bit in the run game as well, and no looking back at that point. So a couple more things to look at here, and then I actually have some notes on newcomers as well. And again, this is a little bit of a prediction for me, but if you're looking at matchups to watch, I think Miami believes that they can, because again, we're talking about running the ball and wearing them down at the end of the game. Hopefully you've built up a lead there, but I expect Miami to test the secondary, right? So we've heard so much about Cam Ward, his downfield, vertical passing ability. Obviously protecting the football is a big deal for him this year, but I don't think Miami's going to come into this game and call a scared game from the jump, right? I think you're going to see Miami get aggressive and take some shots downfield, and those chunk plays can quiet the crowd down a little bit, right, early in those games. So something to watch, but I don't expect Miami to play this game too conservatively from the jump. Now, wanted to talk about one of our other partners here at CanesInSight, Asset Dash. Of course, if you've been watching us the last few weeks here, it's one of our new partners. And Asset Dash is a market-leading portfolio tracker and rewards program where you can do everything from tracking your investments, earning rewards, and now buying over 1,000 different cryptocurrencies on Solana natively through the app. You earn rewards through the app. Asset Dash is giving away thousands of dollars a week through their app. Again, assetdash.com. This QR code, you can download the app through that. And right now, enter the code CANES, all caps, as sign up. You will receive a free premium Asset Dash Gold membership for life. Limited time offer, CANES, all caps. Again, thank you to our partners at Asset Dash. So, sorry, let me pull up this. Oh, I'm gone. I don't know how I can get myself back up there. Let me see. Here we go. All right. So let me get to some of the questions here. What do we need to stop to win? I think, listen, Chris S. asked the question here. What do we need to do, or what do we need to stop to win? And I'm not too worried about Miami stopping the run game. But again, I want to see them make those tackles in the open field on some of these receivers, right? Because when you have an efficient passing game, at least by the completion percentage, by the lack of turnovers from Mertz's side, where Miami's going to really have to get to him. The only way, hypothetically, unless there's busted coverage, right, which could happen, but consistently over the course of the game, I believe, is missing tackles, 3-4 yard out route, something out of the backfield, one-on-one, make a guy miss 15, 20 yards, and you start to these plays wear you down as a defense over the course of the game. So I think they must tackle. And again, sounds cliche, but that's the bottom line for me. Do you think their secondary has any chance at slowing down this wide receiver group? Will Taylor asked this question. And look, The secondary, I think, was a big weakness for them last year. I think that Castell is a guy that they're confident at safety. I mentioned earlier this week on a podcast, Jason Marshall is someone who has not really put it all together yet, right? But he has the physical ability still on the radar of the NFL. And as you know, we've seen certain guys at Miami not have incredible careers at Miami, not put up huge numbers, not be a lockdown. Tyreek Stevenson, I mentioned the other day, had his struggles at Miami. Some of that was communication-wise, things of that nature. It wasn't necessarily physical ability. But I think Marshall's a guy who has legit talent, right? He has a size, he can run, but he hasn't put it all together. He's someone who they're expecting him to take a leap, right? As Miami fans, we can look at what he's done the first few years, but the talent's there. If he puts it together, I think he's someone who's a really good player. But he's put on film what he's put on film, so he's got to go out and change that for his sake. $45. So let's get some predictions in here. The only separation says 45-27 Canes. Alain Fernandez says, Pete, do you want the ball first or defense first? I want the ball first, man. I think I'm confident in the defense, especially up front there, but Florida gets the ball first, gets an early touchdown. The swamp starts rocking. I think if Miami gets the ball first, is able to capitalize, get some points on the board, you get the momentum rolling in your favor there, and you put pressure on a Florida offense that we already understand. There's a lot of question marks there, right? And listen, there's question marks for both teams on both sides, but that Florida offense behind the eight ball, I think would be a good thing for Miami. Andre Velikopolsky, the best three-point shooter in Wellness Center history, says 33-20 Miami. I like that prediction, man. I put out my official prediction earlier was, let me see what it was. Hold on a second here. Hold on. I think I said 28-19 Miami. That's what I said. So not far off there. Workforce Freebie says 31-27 Canes. Hopefully I'm wrong and the margin's bigger than that. Listen, that would be a cover because the spread's 2.5 right now. Miami's favored. So that would, good teams win, great teams cover. And listen, Miami could win by 1 point. I think we could all nitpick at the end of the day, but 1-0 would be 1-0. Maverick says 28-17 Miami. El Profesor says 28-21 Miami. 35-24 Canes for life. 24-20 Gators. Listen, I'm glad we have someone on the other side here. So Luis Delgadillo says 24-20 Gators. I'm too worried that we're overconfident here. We haven't done anything for the last 20 years. Look, we as fans may be overconfident. I don't think the team is going in there. Listen, they're confident. They feel good. They're ready. But I don't think they're overlooking this game. It's very tough to overlook a week one opponent, especially when you're going in there against a team that you obviously don't like very much, and there's so much been put on this game. But you make a good point there also. Miami has not won this game, not against Florida, but this sort of game in 15, 20 years. So, that's definitely a valid concern. Jake Wynn, 34-21 Canes. Mertz is like DJU. If they get a little behind, it's an uphill battle. I agree with you. I don't think they want to be forced to push the ball downfield. And look, I'm not saying 7-0 lead for Miami doesn't force you to do that. It's still so early in the game. They can kind of play their game a little bit, but it puts a little bit of more pressure on them. Takes the air out of the stadium. When's the hype video coming out? Our boy Trenton Breeze made a hype video, going to be dropping it probably tomorrow morning, maybe tonight. Stay tuned for that. Evan Freed, 41-17 Canes. 850 Kane, 31-27 Miami. Well, 850 Kane, if you're talking about the Hype podcast, we dropped that with D-Money yesterday morning. So it's on the YouTube page if you want to check that out. We've had a lot of support on that one recently. Pete, does this have a Miami versus LSU game at Dallas. I guess he was saying feel to it. I don't think it does. I don't think that Miami team had anywhere near the talent that this Miami team has. I think they're much stronger at the quarterback position. I think they're much stronger in the trenches. And obviously we ended up seeing the sort of talent on that LSU team as the years, have gone by. But I don't get that feeling. No, I don't. I don't think that Miami team was well equipped to play a team like that. So let me see here. I also wanted to talk about, of course, our friends at Miami Hurricanes team store. They have incredible stuff over there, located right next to the Thesis Hotel across from campus. This new Miami Lefebvre collection is amazing. I love these hats they have, the corduroy, and of course, check out, they got all the NIL guys on here, JoJo Trader, Ray Joseph. You see the slides. Everyone's getting the slides. It's been a hot topic lately. And then, of course, these Adidas Miami Hurricane strategy jerseys. I'm a big fan of these. You got the number 24. You got it's for the year, but we can say it's for Chris Johnson Jr., obviously. Excited about what he's going to do this year. But again, Miami Hurricanes team store, MiamiHTS.com. So I'll get to a few more questions here before we wrap it up. And Jake Wynn says D-Money nailed it again. Definitely worth the watch. And again, that's on his preseason hype pod. If you haven't already, D does those every year. Does a great job getting us all ready for these games and for the seasons. A lot of times we get disappointed, but that's just been the nature of the program the last 20 years here. But he does not fail to get our hopes high once again. But I've said it, guys. I'm just talking to NFL scouts and people around the league who pay attention to this sort of stuff. Miami does not have right now like a first round pick, guaranteed anything at the top 100 or anything like that. But across the board, the level of talent has been significantly raised. A lot of guys who aren't eligible for the draft yet, obviously. But at the end of the day, you've got the quarterback position that a lot of things are hinging on. And to me, it's just such an upgrade over what you've had, the last 10, 15 years. And that's not to downgrade some of the guys who have been here. I think De'Aaron King was great for this program, for example. But I think the ceiling with Cam Ward is very high. The only separation says this game has a Miami versus Virginia Tech 2002 feel to it, 45-27. Running back's going to run wild like McGahee did. I don't think that's a bad prediction, man. I think this Miami run game has the real chance to wear some teams down. Now, Florida has some guys up front, so is this the game for that? We'll see. But those guys they have up front, they have some big boys in the interior. So what's their stamina going to look like at the end of the game when they've had to play 4 quarters in that heat, what the humidity we expect it to be like tomorrow at 3:30. So we'll see. Let's see here. Get to a few more comments. Reed Rambo says D-Money in all white was something to behold. It definitely was. He'd been planning that outfit and has been planning this thing out for a few months now. So everything came to fruition there for him, and it was a great production by him and the team. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap things up here. Appreciate everyone for joining me this afternoon. Just getting a feel for everyone this afternoon, seeing how we're feeling in Canes Nation. We're finally here, man. Tomorrow, 3:30, the Swamp. Appreciate everyone for joining me this afternoon. Hope everyone gets up to Gainesville safely. If you're on your way up there still, we need you guys bringing it all tomorrow. Go Canes. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel as always, and we will be back tomorrow after the game for a post-game recap. Go Canes.